Welcome to Dirt Road Believer for our study on the book of Esther. If you missed yesterday's introduction to this study, I really wish you would go back and look at it. It explains why this study is named Divine Constellation. And we're just going to jump right in. Your reading assignment for yesterday was chapter 1 and 2. So we're going to jump right in today. First of all, there are a couple of themes I want us to pay attention to throughout this book. The first one is things that come in pairs. All throughout the book, you are going to see pairs of things happening. And pairs can mean one of two things. It can represent unity or it can represent discord. So we're going to see how those two appear in the book. And then also this theme of feasting and banquets. It starts out with a banquet. So let's jump right into chapter 1. It tells us that King Xerxes is the king of Persia. He rules over 127 provinces. And in the third year of his reign, he decides to display his wealth. He is going to liberally, for 180 days, display his wealth to all sorts of prominent people, nobles, officials, military, princes, and they occupy all these 127 provinces. So he has put on a show for 180 days, and then as a culmination of this, he's going to have a banquet for 7 days. And oh my goodness, I wish I had been invited to this banquet because it sounds fantastic. If you'll look in verses 4 through 8, I'm going to kind of paraphrase, but it's in it takes place in an enclosed garden. There are, and this is where his palace is, in the city of Susa, and there are hangings of white and blue linen. They're fastened with cords of white linen and purple material, silver rings of marble pillars. There were couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement that included marble and mother of pearl and other costly stones. So just get this vision in your head that no expense has been spared for this party. And forget wine charms. Everybody had their own customized goblet, and it was an open bar. Whatever you wanted, you got. Parallel to this banquet that the king is given for 7 days, Queen Vashti, his queen, is doing the same thing. She's hosting her own banquet apart from the king's. So here we see the theme of feasting, and it's happening in pairs. The king is having one and his Queen Vashti is having another. On that 7th day, something happens. The king is in wonderful spirits. He's had a little too much to drink, and he tells one of his eunuchs to go and get his wife, that he wants her to come to his banquet, leave her banquet, come to his banquet, and display her beauty to all of his guy friends that are around. And she refuses. That's not a good thing. When you are the queen and your king demands your presence and you say no thanks, that's a problem. And so he consulted with his, of course he was humiliated, he was angered, and so he takes it up with his officials. What should we do? And so oftentimes what happens when you have an angry, humiliated individual with no wisdom whatsoever and power, they usually lump people into a group. Now we're not just mad at Queen Vashti, we're mad at all women everywhere, and they all need to be put under men's thumbs. So in verse 21, you will see it says there's going to be a royal decree written, and then in verse 21, we're going to read there, it says, "The king and his nobles were pleased with this advice, so the king did as this official proposed. He sent dispatches to all parts of the kingdom, to each province in its own script, everyone in the language that they could read, to every person in his own language, proclaiming in each people's tongue that every man should be ruler over his household." That tells us that in Persia, up until this time, there was an equal footing between men and women, between husbands and wives, and they sort of functioned as a pair. But now, because the king has been humiliated and his queen has refused an appearance, he's mad at all women, and he thinks that all men should have the right to tell their wives what to do. So, and just an interesting part of this, what have I done on my notes? Oh snap, y'all are gonna get to see me freak out temporarily. They're right here. One interesting thing about Queen Vashti's deposal was she was pregnant during this time, and I don't know if she began showing after she was requested to come to the banquet, or if she was nice and pregnant then, and that was part of what he wanted to show off. I don't know, but when she was thrown off the throne as queen, she was pregnant with their third son. So she was not only the queen, she was the queen mother. So that says a lot about just how angered the king was and how much he wanted to display his power. All right, we're going to move on to chapter 2, and now we see in the beginning that the king's anger has subsided, and for whatever reason, this is 4 years later, by the way. He's had all this time, all this is water under the bridge with Queen Vashti. She's no longer queen. And then something reminds him, you know, we do this all the time, ladies. Something in the past has happened, and whatever sparks that memory, we begin to just relive it and stew all over again. And that's what the king's doing. And so as he begins to get angered about something that happened 4 years ago, he's like, what did we ever do about that? Wasn't I supposed to get a new queen? So he's got to do it up in grand style, just like he does everything else. So he gets his personal attendants, and they go out into the 127 provinces that he rules over, and they are going to find the most beautiful virgins in the land to bring to him, and he's going to get to pick his own queen. Now, I really want to slow down for just a second and read verse 5 through verse 7, because this is going to give us a lot of information about Esther and about her adoptive father. It says, now there was in the citadel of Susa a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin named Mordecai, son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, who had been carried into exile from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, among those taken captive with Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This girl, who was also known as Esther, was lovely in form and features, and Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter when her father and mother had died. Gosh, we get a lot right here. Number one, Mordecai and his whole family is here in Persia because of an exile. They're no longer in captivity, they're free at this point, but his whole reason for being there was because of the exile, because of the king of Babylon. It says that Esther's Jewish name or Hebrew name is Hadassah, and he brought her up because her parents had died. She no longer had parents, so he stepped in. He was actually, I believe, a first cousin to her father. And so when Esther's parents died, he stepped up as the father and became her adoptive father. So we see that this Jewish girl named Hadassah, who has lost both of her parents, she is beautiful. It says, the Bible ain't afraid to say she had a good body, okay, ladies? She was lovely in form and features. She was in every way beautiful. And she was around, I told you she was around the age of Brienne, who sang for us yesterday. She was 14 years old at this time when she was brought to the king of Persia as a possible queen. All right, so we move on, and immediately when she gets to the harem, she's in a harem. She's kept in a harem. All these girls are that are going to meet the king, and when I say meet the king, it really sleep with the king. That's what they were there for. They were housed, and immediately Esther won the favor of the eunuch who was in charge of the harem. His name was Haggai. That's in verse 8. It says the girl pleased him and won his favor. Immediately he provided her with beauty treatments and special food, and he assigned 7 maids to her. So right away the Lord saw to it that Esther gained the favor of the people around her. And in verse 10 we learn that Esther was instructed by her uncle, or by her adoptive father Mordecai, not to reveal her nationality. Don't tell anyone that you're a Jew. Even though the Jews were not held in captivity anymore, as we well know in our country, many of the things that happened long ago, sort of shape your ideas about certain nationalities. And so this exile that had taken place of the Jews, there was a lot of discrimination going on. And he didn't want the king or anyone in the palace to know that she was a Jew. And she honors that. She does not tell anybody. So here we are at verse 12, and here's kind of what happens before a girl goes to meet the king. It says in verse 12, before a girl's turn came to go into King Xerxes, she had to complete 12 months of beauty treatments prescribed for women, 6 months with oil and of myrrh, and 6 with perfumes and cosmetics. And this is how she would go to the king. Anything that she wanted was given to her to take with her to the king's palace. She would go in the evening, she would return in the morning. So we know exactly what was going on during that time. In the evening she would go there, she would return, and she couldn't even return the way she came. She had to go in the back door of the harem, so to speak. So they had this group of girls in one section of the harem that were awaiting their turn to go to the king, and then sort of in another area, you've already been used. You're kind of on hold to see if he wants you again. And yes, the beauty treatments and all that sounds like a great time. Spa with your girlfriends every day for 6 months, or no, 12 months. You had to complete 12 months. So by the time she even met the king, she was 15. And I don't want to minimize this, because this was a Jewish girl. She had been to many weddings by this time, and the Jewish custom at a wedding was, the reception, so to speak, was kicked off with the bride and groom going into a tent together to consummate their marriage, and then the sheet with the blood was presented, and that was celebrated. So this idea that she was going to lose her virginity to someone that she was unmarried to someone who was demanding it, who was using many girls for this, this was just, it was heartbreaking to her, and it was sad, but it was something that she knew she had to do. And when she went, this kind of tells us what a simple girl she was. Esther was not, she only took what the eunuch, said, take this. I'm sure there were girls who were trying really, really hard to impress, who really wanted to become queen, whose family had put them under pressure to go and succeed at becoming queen, but that was not Esther's heart. Esther only took what was recommended, and we see that in verse, 15. It says, to go to the king, she asked for nothing other than what Haggai, the one whose favor she had won, the king's eunuch was in charge of the harem, suggested. And then Esther won the favor of everyone who saw her. She was not pretentious, she was not a try-hard, and people fell in love with her because of this. So here's her turn. She goes to see the king, and she won the favor of the king. she was more favored than any other. She received the king's approval. And so he set the royal crown on her head. She became queen instead of Vashti, and the king gave a great banquet. Here we are with another feast, a theme in this book. And all the nobles and officials came. You can imagine they were all trying to impress the king and the queen. And what we all wish would happen to us, ladies, she was given her own holiday. It says he proclaimed a holiday throughout the provinces and distributed gifts with royal liberality. So wouldn't that be great? You get all the beauty treatments, you get to be queen, and then you get your own holiday. All right, we're going to end with a little conspiracy that is uncovered. This will be the kind of dun dun dun, the mystery leading into tomorrow, which for tomorrow you're going to need to read 3 chapters. Chapter 3, 4, and 5, and you'll be ready to go tomorrow. So here's Mordecai. We see what a wonderful guy and father Mordecai is. I know he's in the province of Susa already, but he makes a point to come every day and to hang out around the harem. He's always at the king's gate. He's close enough to get messages of how is Esther doing, and she does the same for her adoptive father. So Mordecai is like he is every day. He's hanging outside the king's gate, and he hears 2 of his officials plot to assassinate the king. And so Mordecai does his duty. He reports this. It is investigated, and it is found to be true. And these 2 officials are hung in the gallows, and it is recorded in the king's book. That's going to be important to remember later on. Hey, today was fascinating. I love this book, and I hope you are ready for another day of great study tomorrow. Thank you for joining me, and hey, slow down and take the dirt road, believer.